Good evening, viewers, and welcome to this edition of Resource PNG. The Chief Inspectors of Mines are the most senior technical officers with regulatory responsibility and accountability for mining operations. The role of the Chief Inspector of Mines is crucial in ensuring the enforcement of safety laws applicable to mines. In tonight's episode, we speak to Mohang Singh, Papua New Guinea's Chief Inspector of Mines, on his role and his vision as a regulator for the mineral sector in Papua New Guinea.
Mining House. This modern building is the headquarters of the leading government agency for regulation of the mining industry in PNG. Constructed at a cost of about 50 million euros, this state-of-the-art building was inaugurated by the Honourable Prime Minister Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare in June 2007. More than 100 employees dedicate their services to this institute to make sure that the authority delivers its mandate to the best of its ability for the overall well-being of the people of Papua New Guinea. Mr. Mohang Singh, the current Chief Inspector of Mines of Papua New Guinea, entered into this prestigious institution with the mandate to regulate the safety and health aspects of persons working in the mining industry. In his quest to bring change, he traveled a highly challenging path and made his impact in the industry. We followed him to have an insight into his critical role and responsibilities as the Chief Inspector of Mines. Join us for an interesting conversation that we're going to have with him. He seems busy with his business. Well, before we ask his permission to talk to him, let me tell you that Mr. Singh is a well-qualified and experienced mining engineer who did his bachelor's from the Indian School of Mines and master's from the University of Alberta in Canada. Acknowledging his outstanding performance in studies and achievements in sports and other extracurricular activities, the university bestowed him the Best Student Award. In his pursuit to excel further, he has also obtained the Project Management Professional designation from the Project Management Institute in the United States. He has over 2 decades of experience as a regulator in a similar role and is well-traveled globally.
Mineral Resources Authority is the leading government agency for regulating the mining industry in Papua New Guinea, and you serve as the Chief Inspector of Mines with them. What precisely is your role within the authority?
Mineral Resources Authority is the leading government agency in the mining sector, and it has basically 2 roles. One is regulation and other is promotion. And the Chief Inspector's office is housed with the Mineral Resources Authority for the purpose of regulating the provisions of the Mining Safety Act. Under this act, in fact, my role is directly to regulate the mining industry and directly report to the mining minister. So for all regulatory matters, I report to the Honorable Mining Minister, but for all administrative purposes, I do seek assistance from my managing director in terms of providing resources and other administrative services.
Which legislation in Papua New Guinea governs the safety and health aspects of persons in mining, and how relevant is it in today's context?
You see, the Mining Safety Act in 1977 and the Mining Safety Regulations in 1935. They are the 2 pieces of legislation which regulate the subject of safety and health and well-being of persons working in mines, basically from the occupational health point of view. Now, as you see, the legislation is as backdated as 1977. The regulations are as backdated as 1935. Most of the provisions really do not have much relevance to the mining industry, which is 21st, which is running into the 21st century. Most of the provisions are outdated, and there is an exercise from the government side to undertake amendments to this legislation so that they can be brought at par with the international practices. But as on date, these legislations really do not provide you much guidance or much direction to regulate the industry, which is so mechanized, which is so advanced in today.
The mining industry and technology has changed since then. Is the government doing something to update these laws?
Before I came, actually, I was informed that an exercise for amendments was taken way back in 2006, and the Department of Mineral Policy is the department responsible for driving these amendments. They engaged consultants from Australia, and they worked for a couple of years and put up a draft to the government. but somehow that draft could not be taken forward. And when I came and I looked at the draft, there were still some improvements to be done in that case. So the department again engaged another consultant sometime last year. He is working on that draft and probably would be soon putting up that draft to the department before it could really be discussed at other platforms before it is finalized. So the exercise is well in advance, but it's very difficult to say that when exactly that draft would be finally accepted and taken to the parliament.
Don't go away. We shall pick up where we left off with this interview after this short break. Welcome back to the program. A part of the Mining Act states that a person should not be employed in an underground mine no longer than 8 hours. Specialized roles like a lender or a braceman have to be fit to do their work. From this and parts of the Act, it seems companies are legally obligated to ensure their workforce is kept in good health. In this segment, we speak to Moang Singh about how companies in PNG have helped their people incorporate rest and exercise and health checks into their regime.
How important are exercise and rest for employees, and how have companies in Papua New Guinea been able to help their people with health checks, rest and exercise?
You see, the provisions of the regulations and the Act restricting the working hours of people who work underground to 8 hours has been done from the perspective that underground mines are far more hazardous than open pit mines, because people have to work in an environment where you don't have much natural ventilation, you don't have lighting underground, and you are working in a very confined environment where you cannot see beyond few meters of distance. So it is all across the world, it was legislated that people should not be allowed to work for more than 8 hours underground. But however, under certain special circumstances, the chief inspector has the authority that he can allow to people to work beyond 8 hours. And today, I think the world over, the industry practices that people are working 12 hours in a shift and on different rosters. The terminology that you have used in terms of the lander and the brace man, in fact, again relates to an underground operation. In a situation where people are lowered into the underground workings through a cage, which you can say as an elevator, it takes the people down, and then you land at different levels in the underground, and you need to station a person at the landing position to transmit signals to the surface, so that the cage is stationed at the proper place before the people get in and get out. So in PNG context, actually this provision has no relevance, because we do not have any mine which has that shaft. We have 2 underground mines in PNG, but those mines are accessed through a horizontal tunnel into the hill, which we call it as adit, or through declines, which is you can say a circular tunnel that goes down into the underground. Now, as far the health of people is concerned, you see, the basic obligation of complying with the provisions of any legislation, whether it is safety, health or well-being, the primary responsibility does lie with the employer, and they have to make sure that they have sufficient resources with them to comply with that. They train their people, they develop their skills in a way that people are able to work safely and efficiently. So in PNG, the mines, they get their people trained through some of the experienced trainers across Australia, because we do not have that institutional arrangement within PNG for that. So people come from Australia and they train them, and sometimes the mines send their people across to Australia and they get trained over there. Here, some mines do have some modest facilities for training of different equipments that we use here. And from the health perspective point of view, in fact, people are supposed to be undertaken through a process of complete health checks before they are employed in mines, and then thereafter you have to carry out those health checks on a regular basis depending upon in what sort of occupation that person is working. So, so it amounts to monitoring their health on a continuous basis. It amounts to providing facilities and infrastructure on site so that people can use those facilities to keep them fit. There are mines who have their very good gyms where people can go and work, recreation centers where people can go and relax. So it's an area where the mines are continuously engaged in uplifting the safety and health aspects of their employees.
Under the Mining Safety Act 1977, it allows a person to make a complaint if they deem their workplace or condition to be unsafe. How would an inspector handle such a complaint?
Yes, there is a provision under the Mining Safety Act that if any complaint is received by the inspector, he is supposed to immediately respond to that situation. It is a bit funny, if an accident takes place in a mine, the inspector is not obliged to immediately respond to that situation, but in case of a complaint, he is bound to respond to it immediately. It is fortunately, actually, we hardly get any complaints from the industry. For a couple of reasons that people, number one, may not be knowing that such a sort of mechanism does exist. Secondly, there are already at the mine level, they already have different systems and procedures where people can raise their voice and bring any issues to the notice of their superiors and to the managers and senior managers. So the issues are addressed primarily at the mine level, and only when they exhaust all their options, probably they can definitely come to the inspector to tell us that what are the issues. But fortunately, so far I do not remember very clearly that we ever received any complaint. But in case a complaint is received, what normally we do is that to get to the root of that, get the truth out of that, we do not immediately react to that. We rather write to the management, the mine management, and seek their comments on that, and then make an assessment, whether the subject of complaint is really worth proceeding ahead. If it is, definitely we dispatch an inspector from here who will go and see through. We have the powers to enter into the mine, to inspect any records. So the inspector will go and run through that process of inquiry, if that is the case, and once the reality is known, so the appropriate action under the Mining Safety Act is taken against the mine management.
It has been suggested that very little has been done about mining safety, especially in terms of research and monitoring in Papua New Guinea. There was the notable overhaul of the operational health and safety laws in the 1990s. How has the government helped with research and monitoring?
There's a very pertinent question. It's a technical field, and you have to have a continuous research, a continuous monitoring in this field, so that we could really understand what are the trends in terms of safety and health. You see, you would appreciate that the Mining Safety Act, which is the very basic legislative document, in itself is 1977. Research is a stage where you already have the systems in place, and then you want to improve those systems beyond a point and then engage into research and monitoring. PNG, we are still struggling with the legislation which is sufficient to address the current needs of the industry in terms of safety and health. So I don't think that in PNG we are yet ready to really get into that research and monitoring while we still have our legislation which is so backdated. The first thing for the government to do is that we get this legislation reenacted, and which really addresses the requirements of the industry in today's perspective before we really think of engaging into any endeavors that go towards the research and monitoring.
We will have more on that interview when we return. Do join us after the break. Thank you for staying with us. We now continue on this interesting interview with Moang Singh, Papua New Guinea's Chief Inspector of Mines.
We know that you organised the first National Mining Emergency Response Challenge in March 2011 in Leh and the first National Mining Safety Week in March 2012. What are these events all about, and do you plan to continue with them in future?
Usually, if you precisely go through the Mining Safety Act and the mining safety regulations, there is no provision for organizing any emergency response challenge or having any safety week celebrations. But these activities are not legislative activities. These are basically safety promotional activities, which in other jurisdictions across the globe, the industry in fact engages itself that on a regular basis the mines participate in these competitions, they bring in their teams, they compete with each other, and through the process they learn with each other, they develop new relations with each other, and they uplift the status of safety. This is basically a learning process and a process through which you can demonstrate your skills to each other and learn from each other. This aspect in fact had been missing very badly in PNG. When I came over here and saw the industry is busy, they are working in silos, in isolation, and there is no cross pollination, so to say, between the mines. And we do have a body of the industry which we call it as the Mining and Petroleum Chamber of Mining and Petroleum here. In other jurisdictions, in fact, the industry itself takes this initiative. The inspectorates normally they maintain their distance because it is basically industry's mandate to do this. But since this was missing, so I thought that we need to engage the industry in a very big way. So what I did, that first of all, I thought of bringing the entire industry to one table. And we constituted a Apex Mining Safety Council, which is represented by all the general managers of the operating mines. The idea was to bring them to one table to highlight that we still need to do a lot. And we really had to enthuse them, motivate them. And I am really grateful to the industry that everybody agreed to the ideas that we put forward to them. And as a consequence of that, we then constituted two functional arms of the Apex Council. One is the Mining Safety Forum and another is the Emergency Response Forum. So these forums are represented by again HODs of safety and HODs of emergency response in each mine. And these people were given the mandate that the ER forum will go and organize an emergency response challenge for the entire industry last year. So last year it was for the first time for the nation that we had an ER competition in the mining industry in which most of the mines participated, and it was an excellent response from the participants. They said, we want to come again and again and again. And from that level, then we thought, let us transform this ER forum or ER competition, because ER competition is between select teams from each mines, but there is a huge workforce back in the mine who is still not aware of what is happening in the country. So we thought of transforming this ER competition into a full-fledged mining safety week. So this year in March, we organized a National Mining Safety Week. We developed a program for all the industry, and this was driven through the National Safety Forum. Each mine through that program did a lot of things at the respective mines. A lot of competitions were held, and my inspectors, including myself, we visited some of the mines during that program to have a first-hand feel of how people are receiving this message. And I must tell you, I was too pleased to see that people were so enthusiastic about these things. Probably these things were being done for the first time in the country. So the inspectorate is driving the whole industry, rather enthusing the whole industry to come together and share their resources and do something different. We definitely would like to continue with these safety promotional exercises in the years to come, or rather would refine as the time comes.
We know that you've also constituted the National Apex Mining Safety Council. What is the role and function of this council?
This council basically is represented by the general managers of all the operating mines. Of late, we have also included the project directors of new projects. We have 4 or 5 new projects which are coming up very fast. In the next say 4 or 5 years, these projects will be in production. So these projects are moving very fast. So the project directors of these projects have also been now included onto the Apex Council. So this Apex Council, you can say, is now a very high powered sort of committee or council which will conceptualize and drive various initiatives in the mining industry. The basic mandate of this council basically is to, number one, look at how we can promote safety and health in mines through various types of competitions and programs. Number two, draw up some training programs for our workforce which could be spread across the entire industry in a uniform way, because today mines do have their own training programs, but they are not following a very standard format. So we want that the entire workforce in PNG follows some sort of a standard template for training. So this is one of the mandate which this council through the forums is taking forward. Then we are also taking on board some of the burning issues in the mining industry in terms of safety, like we sometimes have accidents due to light vehicles which are operating within the mines. We are having issues of fatigue in the mines because of couple of reasons. One of them is that we have very long working hours and very long rosters, but there are other issues, social issues, that are attached to this fatigue. So it's a whole gamut of affairs which can assist the mining industry in PNG to be competitive with any other nation, developed nation in the world. I normally say that the mining industry and PNG, so far as the industry is concerned, PNG is in the list of advanced countries, because our mines are so advanced in technology and processes and systems, and it can be compared with any other developed country. But the issue is that our legislative institutional arrangement and our legislations, they are not at par with the international standards. It's somewhere where from the government side we are still lacking, and I think with the current minister, I have discussed these issues with him, and he is very positive, very supportive of these things, that we have to uplift the institutional arrangement within PNG and the legislative arrangement within PNG, so that we can compete with the rest of the world.
Do stay tuned. There's more after this break. If you have just tuned in, we are in an interview with Muang Singh, Papua New Guinea's Chief Inspector of Mines, speaking to him about health and safety aspects in mining. Let's watch that interview.
We understand that you have invited all chief inspectors of mines from Australia and New Zealand to Papua New Guinea in September this year. Can you tell us something more about this special event?
This is something which is really very historic, which is going to happen in PNG. There is a body of chief inspectors which we call it as Conference of Chief Inspectors of Mines. This body, in fact, is represented by all the chief inspectors from Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. And this body had been in existence for the last more than 50 years. And Papua New Guinea was an observer on this body for all through. It was only last year when we we debated why PNG is only an observer, why we cannot be a full-fledged member, due to the fact that our mining industry is no less than any other mining industry in the world, though we are not that strong from the, as I earlier told you, we are not very strong on the institutional arrangement and the legislative arrangement. But as far the industry is concerned, we are no less than any other developed country. And I am pleased to tell you that Papua New Guinea was now taken as a full member on this forum or on this conference since last year. And one of the obligations on us is that we host this conference in our jurisdiction, because this conference is hosted every year in different jurisdictions. I have attended earlier being hosted in Australia. So it was now our call that we show to the rest of the world that we are no less than anybody else. So we took this responsibility on our shoulders, and we are now inviting all the chief inspectors from Australia and New Zealand to come over here in September and spend a week here. They will be taken to different mines, to Lahir and to Medang, and we will have our conference proceedings in Medang for 3 days. It's going to be a historic moment for PNG, and I am too pleased as a chief inspector of Papua New Guinea, rather feel proud that it is during my times that such a conference is being hosted in Papua New Guinea.
What is your vision as a regulator for the mineral sector in Papua New Guinea?
You see, the journey so far as a chief inspector has been very challenging, very interesting. As I told you earlier, that we have issues with respect to the institutional capacity as well as the legislative arrangement here. Apart from that, when I look into this country, I see there is a huge potential, there is a huge opportunity available in this country practically in every sphere. The Mining Safety Act 77, for reasons not known to me, applies to only working mines, means only those activities that are conducted on mining leases, so to say, and the mining lease is only granted when the developer or the company is ready to produce or ready to construct that mine. And we have only 9 projects, significant projects that are working in this country. But if you look at the rest of the country, 90% of the land mass of this country and approximately 15% of the territorial waters, they have been thrown to exploration. Many companies are exploring every nook and corner of Papua New Guinea, and this entire activity is unregulated from safety and health point of view. Quarries, the operation of a quarry is almost similar to mining, because you excavate, you drill, you blast, you use equipment, everything is same. Maybe in earlier days we might be having very minimal quarrying operations in Papua New Guinea, so it was not taken into the Mining Safety Act. But today, because of the construction boom going on everywhere, you have big quarries which are working across, and those quarries are outside the purview of the Mining Safety Act. Even, you see, if you look in the energy sector, the petroleum and gas, there is so much of, we have ExxonMobil coming up here with maybe $16 billion of investment into this country, which will double up, people say it will double up the economy of the nation. And we have similar probably deposits still being explored in this country. And I am not aware of that if there is any agency, government agency, which is regulating the safety, health and well-being of persons who are working in that industry. What I foresee is that this country needs to have a body at the national level, a authority at the national level, which regulates the entire mineral and energy sector in the subject of safety and health. I think this is what I can visualize, and I'm happy to share with you that my honorable minister has liked the idea very much, and he is very supportive of this idea, and probably he wishes to take this mandate forward through his political process. So I one day see that this country has a very strong and well resourced national level authority which looks into the safety and health aspects of the entire mineral sector, energy sector. Let me tell you, the geothermal energy, which is very special to this nation, very few nations in the world has that potential for geothermal energy. Coal bed methane, it is a gas which is trapped into the coal seams. There is a huge potential for even these energy segments in this country, and I don't see any authority which can really look into again the same aspects. So what I mean to say is that this apex national level authority can look into the entire energy sector and mineral sector, so that we have thousands and thousands of people who are working in the mining industry, both in the formal and informal sector. So as a nation, I think it is our obligation, maybe legislative obligation or a constitutional obligation, that we take care of our people from the safety aspect, health aspect, well-being aspect.
That was Moang Singh, Papua New Guinea's Chief Inspector of Mines, speaking on the health and safety aspects of the mining industry. Welcome back. In this segment, we speak to Honourable Mike Reynolds, Australian Patron of the Youth with a Mission NGO. YWAM, as it is popularly called, is an NGO that is actively developing communities by addressing the healthcare and training needs in Papua New Guinea, alongside the priorities of the PNG National Health Plan and also its commitment to the UN's Millennium Development Goals. Here are a few different videos on YWAM's work in PNG. Let us join Eunice in the interview and gain an insight into the workings of YWAM.
Good evening. Tonight we are joined by the patron of Youth with a Mission Medical Ships Australia, Honourable Mike Reynolds. Good evening.
Good evening, Eunice. Lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So, Youth with a Mission Medical Ships Australia has been in Papua New Guinea since 2010. How does it actually operate? How did this concept start?
Yes, well, Youth with a Mission, which I'll call YWAM, which it's colloquially known as, and YWAM first came here back in 2008 doing some research, if you like, and field work, meeting with locals and really seeing whether a ship could come to Australia from the Pacific, be stationed in Townsville where I live, and then operate in the remote areas of Papua New Guinea. What we first of all did was in May 2009, we came up and met with your then Secretary of Health, Dr. Clement Malau, with ministers, with parliamentarians, and with some key stakeholders here in Port Moresby. And there were two things we said at that particular time. We really wanted to work in Papua New Guinea with a great deal of respect, and secondly, we wanted to work in a very culturally competent way. We're working with a different culture, a culture very close to us, which many of us have been involved in. And at that first meeting that we had with Dr. Malau, he, in answer to our questions, he said to us the two most critical areas where a ship could access areas which can't be accessed now is the Gulf Province and the Western Province. So the ship came to Australia from the Pacific. It was donated to Australia in February 2010, came into Newcastle in New South Wales, to do the work on the ship. And then our first time we came to Papua New Guinea into the Gulf Province was about August of 2010. And that was our first successful 3 months of medical outreaches in the Gulf Province, and it's been a marvellous venture since that time.
So the organisation itself is actually based, it's a voluntary organisation. How do you recruit these volunteers? How do they get involved?
Well, YWAM, as a Christian organisation, Youth with a Mission, has been based in Townsville for about 20 years. And we've had the same director of that organisation, Ken Mulligan, who is our general manager, and also of the YWAM base in Townsville, but also, of course, the executive director of YWAM Medical Ships Australia, of which I am the patron. It's fascinating to see the work that YWAM Medical Ships does, and YWAM itself does. It operates in more than 150 countries around the world. I think it's fair enough to say here on television in PNG, YWAM's always had a fairly low profile. But when you start to be involved in medical ships, you need to be able to promote and market the work you're doing, get supporters, and make sure that people really understand, and are able to clarify the work you're doing as well. But in terms of volunteers, it's amazing that we have volunteers who stay with the YWAM and the YWAM medical ship for up to 20 years. For 7 years, our medical coordinator, Hannah Pitt, has been with us for about 7 years. They are able to operate as a volunteer because they get sponsorship. sometimes from industry and business, but also they get sponsorship from their churches or their local communities. And with some support throughout, we're a registered training organisation, some support that's given by the YWAM base, we have up to 100 volunteers at a time, and they're all full-time. So in Townsville, even though we have 100 full-time volunteers, we're like a small business. We create into the Townsville economy, a generation of income as well. So but those volunteers, by virtue of what they get out of giving, to other people, I think stay there for so long because they just love the work.
Sounds amazing. Now, healthcare in Papua New Guinea is inaccessible, and there's some amazing figures that have come out from YWAM. There's been 4,000 immunizations, almost 4,000. There's about 12,000 health education seminars to residents, and almost about 20,000 preventative health resources, which is toothpaste, toothbrush, mosquito nets, and birthing kits. I'm sure those numbers are pretty staggering, but I believe you're adding to them. They're a lot greater than that now.
Yes, Eunice, we are, because up till the end of last year in both the Gulf province and the Western provinces, we had delivered about 54,000 services. At the same time, of course, empowering local people. We don't want to be here forever. We want the people of Papua New Guinea, to be sustainably involved in their own health industry. So a lot of our work is involving training, skilling up, capacity building. And just on this last outreach we had in the Gulf, we trained about 68 community health workers and others into being able to run clinics better, have greater access to the most up-to-date health education. And it's a great thing to be able to train and capacity build at the same time as we're building the services. But if you add the recent Gulf mission over the last few months, we're up to about 74,000 services that have been delivered to those two provinces, of course, just in the last 2 to 3 years. So the figures are staggering, but they do in fact reflect the need, particularly in the remote areas of PNG, where the statistics, the medical statistics, in terms of morbidity, disease and mortality are very, very large, and large compared across the world as well. When you see in the very remote areas of PNG 1 in 7 women dying in childbirth, they are very indicative of communities that have a great need. And even a birthing kit, can save a mother's life. So those statistics, behind those statistics are the people that we're working with. And I think if I could just reiterate, it is really about empowering the people who often don't have any services at all. In some of the remote areas of the Gulf and the Western provinces, there aren't any services. In fact, we have a shallow draft ship, the MV Pacific Link. We're able to go up, the amazing rivers you have in Papua New Guinea, the tributaries, the areas that we need to access villages. And quite often they're not charted, they're not mapped. So we do the mapping and the chartering, along the way as well. But if you look in the Western province, with the Fly River, we often say to people in Australia who don't know the hugeness of the Fly River, we can fit 100 Sydney Harbour bridges across the mouth of the Fly River. And even, 100 kilometres up, it's still 10 kilometres wide. So we're looking at massive areas here. And we're looking at people who are really in need in remote areas who really receive no health services at all. And that's the beauty of having a shallow draft ship that can access those very important areas.
That was Honourable Mike Reynolds, patron of the YWAM medical ships, giving us an insight into the work of YWAM. Funding is the lifeblood of any organisation. In order for organisations to run smoothly and efficiently, there needs to be a constant supply of funds. We speak to Mike Reynolds on how YWAM gets funding.
The work you do is obviously needs a lot of money, needs a lot of help. Now, so far you've got STEM ships and PNG Sustainable Development and some of your stakeholders in Papua New Guinea. Who are your other stakeholders?
Look, we have 4 key stakeholders, or 5 that I'd just like to mention. And over and above the very strong support we've got from the PNG Sustainable Development Program and also from steamships, we've had very strong support from Octedi Mining Limited, and also, of course, we're receiving support from Interoil. And I'd like to also mention that in the Gulf Province, the Gulf Administration, the Gulf governance in the Gulf Province has also provided fuel and assisted with the work. And sometimes when you look at it, if, for example, we need, and I'll just pluck this figure out of my head, but say 80,000 kina for fuel, that's 80,000 kina. And when someone can actually provide that, or provide in some cases much greater money, that's how we survive, because all of the people on board the ship actually can hold 50 people. That includes the captain of the ship, who's got all of the necessary qualifications, the chief engineer, probably about 12 or 13 of those. And then the other 38 people are all professional health staff and volunteers to do all of the different work that we require in the field. We've got the operating theatre on the ship where we do dentistry, huge numbers of dentistry operations and clinical services. We also do our ophthalmology or cataract surgery, there as well. But we also at the same time have, many on-land clinics that we base out from the ship as well.
So if you're looking for, obviously people can help you. Organisations, what exactly are you looking for in organisations?
Look, we often need money. We operate at the moment with about a $3.4 million budget for the year. About 2.2 million of that is in kind. It's all of our volunteers, it's the specialists and the GPs, the nurses, the optometrists and the dentists, the nurses, I think I said, but all of those are giving their service free of charge. They're in fact paying their airfare to come up here. They pay a rate to us just for food and things while they're there. So they're really giving it their own. And we've had about 350 volunteers, not only from Australia but from here in PNG as well. But at the moment, the ship here in Port Moresby, we have 14 different countries represented. From the Pacific, from as far away as Europe, certainly New Zealand and Australia, from America, from Canada, from Great Britain, Germany. So we have a multitude of different countries who are here doing that work. And that other 1.2 million I'm talking about, this is in Australian dollars, so we can double it for our kina. But indeed, that's the money we need to raise. We've also had some support from AusAid, and we're hoping for some greater support from AusAid, our aid fund from Australia. So that's the money from those mineral and mining companies. This is a magnificent opportunity, as we have with these 4 companies now, where they're giving by way of their own community service obligation money to assist in a very, very strong way. Our overheads aren't large. We have to operate a ship. We have volunteers. We are quite often donated the equipment we have as well. We have a new portable dental chair. They cost thousands of dollars that have been donated to us by international companies. And so we string the budget together, but we really do need, and if I could say today, we really do need the assistance into the future of the mining and resource companies here in Papua New Guinea and in Australia. Quite often they're tied together, and that sort of support is very, very important to us. So,
say for an ordinary Papua New Guinean, if they wanted to assist you, they might not. How would they actually get in touch with you? How can they assist you with your work?
In here in Papua New Guinea, we have just appointed, of course, our new patron, for PNG, and we're delighted that 3 months ago, Sarabi Namalu, our former Prime Minister of PNG, I invited Sarabi to come down and talk at a fundraising breakfast in Townsville. It was around Anzac Day, so he took part in the Anzac Day ceremonies, given our very close relationship as countries in both war and in peace. And indeed, Sarabi is already, as our patron, doing a marvellous job spreading the message in PNG. But as well as that, can I say, in terms of communication, our website is always available for people who can look at the website. Just look at YWAM Townsville and be able to contact us there. The churches around Port Moresby and Papua New Guinea know the YWAM medical ship as well. You know, so even a contact with a local church here would be able to put you in contact with the YWAM medical ship as well.
Sounds like a lot of good work. Now, along that line, the Department of Health and YWAM have actually signed a memorandum of understanding. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, look, that is a vital document for us to have signed. It was a renewal of our original agreement that we had back in May 2009 when we talked to the Secretary of Health. What we indicated at that time is that all the work that we do must be underpinned, you know, by the National Health Strategic Plan for PNG. We are fitting into those vital priorities that you have in PNG. And some of those out in the provinces are areas like immunisation, the really strong focus we have on maternal and child welfare. These are the critical areas, but in 2012 and into the future as well. The Memorandum of Understanding really is an agreement, if you like, between the National Department of Health and YWAM Medical Ships Australia in terms of how we operate here. We have having the endorsement and the strong endorsement of your national, you know, government by way of a Memorandum of Understanding is a very proper and respectful way for us to go about our work, and it's making sure that, of course, as we report back our statistics to that National Department of Health, in the way that they report their statistics, you know, we are giving them some pretty vital information about the work that we're doing in both the Gulf and the Western provinces. You know, given that some of those areas haven't been accessed before, or haven't been accessed perhaps for 30 to 40 years. You know, so we're starting to get the data, which helps to map out, you know, the national health picture as well. But I'd emphasise once again, you know, we are about sticking with the priorities of that national health plan. We do that through to the provincial and local level, you know, governments as well. We do a lot of work and discussions at that local level, really down to the village level, you know, where we map out together with the people at the local level where we go, how we have the order of priority or triaging our patients. You know, that's done at that local level, and it's really about empowering those people to be working side by side. And there are a number of very, very good examples of, for example, you know, our dentists, you know, working with a community health worker who may have 5 different areas of responsibility, including dentistry, but they don't have a dentist. So we've, you know, we've actually had people working with our dentist side by side, and by the time our dentist has gone 2 weeks later from that particular health outreach we've done, that person is able to extract teeth in a professional way, not be a trained dentist, but, you know, right out in that remote area. And when you see people who are really affected by teeth decay and disease, and, you know, their faces bulging out for years and years, and the pain that they must go through, that on-the-site training, capacity building and skilling up is so very important. That's why we make that our major priority.
It's life-changing. Definitely sounds like really great work. Now, you've got more trips scheduled for the rest of the year. Where exactly would you be visiting this time around?
Well, this is our first time we've been in Moresby, you know, in terms of delivering services, and we have 2 clinics out in the suburban areas of Moresby. We have the ship where we're doing dentistry and have done this week. We've had many patients through. I think at this stage about 100, you know, dental patients through. We have 1 dentist from Townsville who's been on every outreach year that we've been involved, Dr. Darryl Holmes, and we've also got a British, you know, dentist with us as well. So we're delivering services for the first time here in the National Capital District, and given that there is a sister city relationship between Townsville and Port Moresby, it's quite appropriate that we deliver some services here. The major priorities are in the remote and the rural areas of PNG, as articulated by your National Health Strategic Plan. But this has been a week for us to showcase the work that we're doing, and as you correctly said before, it is about, you know, making people more aware of us, getting a greater degree of support from those key stakeholders, and, you know, in that way as well. So we, sorry, I didn't answer that particular question, but as much. So, if I could just say, you know, we're still working through our plans to go next in a couple of weeks' time to the Western Province. We delivered there for the first time last year, and we've been working with PNG Sustainable Development Program, and we're going to be going into an area that has received very little services at all for a very long period of time. And I think, you know, when the people of that province are able to have the benefit, you know, of the broad, you know, as I say, we do the cataract surgery, we do the dentistry, the optometry. Some of these, we've had cases where a family has had a degenerative eye disease, the mum and the two children, a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. We've been able to put the mum and the two kids with prescription glasses, and also the dad who needed prescription glasses. And at that stage, both of those children had pulled out of school because they couldn't see, and they're now back at school. So I see education and health, you know, very much together in this way. So the next outreach, health outreach, and delivering the services and training and upskilling and capacity building, we're planning to be in the Western Province, in one of the very remote areas of the Western Province.
That's all we have tonight on Resource PNG. If you want to know more about the program, do email us on this address, resourcepng@mtv.com.pg, or check MTV online on www.mtv.com.pg and go to a Resource PNG page. Until the same time next week, have a pleasant evening.